There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. You know, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. I think about this issue through the lens of my baby nieces, who are 1.5 and 3 years old. And when I look at those babies and I think about what the world will be like in 20 years if we don't act, I'm really afraid. And as it relates to those Republicans in Congress, where I've now been for 2.5 years, every one of those members need to look at the babies, the grandbabies in their life, and then look in the mirror and ask themselves, why have they failed to act?
And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a rare moment of journalism that happened in an interview with a mainstream liberal media anchor, Miss Kristen Welker, and Democrat John Fetterman, because we typically don't see this too much when it comes to interviews that the mainstream liberal media has with Democrats. It's not journalism. It is more of an ass-kissing fest, Trump derangement, kiki and haha, and then softball questions, right? That's typically what it is, right? But in this interview, in this segment here, I can't say that Kristen Welker was necessarily tough with John Fetterman, but at least she asked the guy the right questions, okay? You know that she asked him the right questions because he malfunctioned. He malfunctioned in the middle of the interview because he was asked to explain him and Kamala Harris flip-flopping on the key issue of fracking. Again, now in Pennsylvania, this is a big issue because that industry provides a lot of jobs, okay, especially for men, and it's not a good look to be against basically trying to destroy a whole industry because of your Green New Climate scam, right? And Kristen Welker is going to confront John Fetterman on him and Kamala Harris flip-flopping on this issue. And for whatever reason, he thinks that he doesn't have to explain himself and why he's changed his position because Trump and J.D. Vance are bad. They're evil. They're talking about cats and dogs.
I know you've talked about this quite a bit. Vice President Harris, as you know, once supported a ban on fracking when she was running for president in 2020. She even sued the Obama administration to prevent fracking off California's coast. Now she says she will not ban the practice as president. Why should voters trust that that is really what the vice president believes?
It's so strange why we just keep talking about fracking. Back in 2020, I said that that might be an issue, but it's not going to be a defining issue. And now in 2024, we're still trying to talk about fracking. And now the other side, they're talking about eating cats and geese and dogs and saying absurd things and talking about how if Trump doesn't win, he said that, you have to blame the Jews on that and just absurd things, like having a serious policy conversation when the other side is just absolutely on fire. And here's where we are, and here we are also that it's going to be very close in Pennsylvania, and it's not going to be defined by fracking.
Well, we are talking about it because, of course, it supported 120,000 jobs back in 2022. Let me read you some of what you have said about fracking. In 2016, you called it a stain on Pennsylvania. In 2018, you said you don't support fracking at all. But then in 2022, you said you absolutely support fracking. Senator, what exactly do you like about fracking now?
It's strange for somewhat weird gotcha, kind of taking quotes out of context. And, here I am now. I'm a United States Senator, and I won by 5 points, a record margin back in 22. And again, it might be an issue in fracking, and I fully support fracking. So does the Vice President Harris. And now if you want to have a serious conversation about policy, then I would challenge Trump and Vance to have one other than talking about eating pets.
And we'll have plenty of questions for Senator Lindsey Graham. There's no doubt about that. But to the point, what do you now like about fracking? You say you're not going to ban it. You support it now.
They're eating dogs. They're eating cats. Again. So, okay. Yes. And any more on fracking? I think.
Well, I want to ask you about the Middle East, actually. Let's move on because I do want to get this in. This week, as you know, a new front.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely incredible, guys. Absolutely incredible. Democrats really believe that they are above answering tough questions. I'm so serious. They truly believe that, well, because our opponents are Trump and J.D. Vance, and they're so bad, they're so evil, they're talking about cats and dogs, I don't have to answer questions about my record. I don't have to tell you why I flip-flopped on this major issue. I don't have to do that because they don't have to talk about serious policy issues. Well, first and foremost, that's not true because Republicans are always required to actually really answer questions about policy and be held accountable for policy way more than Democrats, right? It's not even close. Like, for example, when it comes to immigration, this is my favorite example to use, by the way, okay? Because it really shows you the bias of mainstream liberal media when it comes to our politics. Trump gets the blame from Democrats and the liberal media when it comes to the border, right? Even though it's Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's fault. Kamala Harris was border czar. They say that Kamala Harris wasn't border czar, although this same mainstream liberal media was calling her border czar just 2 years ago, right? But they say, well, Trump is responsible because he blocked the bipartisan border bill. And what they mean by bipartisan is that they mean Democrats with 2 Republicans, right? Therefore, it makes it bipartisan, okay? This is what they claim, okay? He takes the blame, as if that is the only border bill that has been passed in Congress, right? But that's not the case. In fact, there was a border bill that was passed by the GOP in the House just a year earlier called the Secure the Border Act. Do the Democrats ever get questioned about, well, why is it that the Secure the Border Act is sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk, right? If you guys really want to close the border, then why is it that Chuck Schumer won't even allow a vote on this piece of legislation? They never get asked that question. Okay, almost as if that bill doesn't exist. The only legitimate border bill is a bill that Democrats agree to. If Democrats don't agree to it, even though it passed, right? It passed the House, the Secure the Border Act, it passed the House, it's sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk. Well, because Democrats don't agree to it, that's not a legitimate bill, right? That's not worth discussing or asking Democrats, why is it that they voted against that bill? Why is it that in the Senate they won't even take up the bill? No, they never ask that question. But Republicans are always asked questions about, well, why didn't you go along with a Democrat bill to secure the border, even though that bill doesn't secure the border, right? This is what I'm talking about, okay? Democrats don't really ever have to answer tough questions, and they don't feel like they should have to, right? They really don't. And they say this out loud, right? This is what they're saying to undecided voters. This segment on Bill Maher here, okay, features Stephanie Rule, who's a host for MSNBC, and Brett Stevens, who's a never Trumper, I believe, okay, a conservative who doesn't really want to vote for Trump. He's open to vote for Kamala Harris, but he doesn't feel like Kamala Harris has given him enough information, right? So he's undecided between sitting it out altogether and voting for Kamala Harris. And Stephanie Rule says, no. You don't need to worry about what Kamala Harris believes. Don't worry about her policy positions. Just know and understand that Trump and J.D. Vance evil, so therefore you don't need to worry about what Kamala Harris believes. She doesn't need to explain herself at all.
I'm an undecided voter. I'm never going to vote for Trump, but I'm not sure I want to vote for Kamala. And my fear is that she doesn't really have a very good command of what she wants to do as president. It would be great for her to sit down with you or George Stephanopoulos or you, Stephanie, and get a succession
As if she'd sit down with me.
Why not? George W. Bush, 25 years ago, was asked if he could name the president of Pakistan and other people. He had no idea. And people said this guy has no command of foreign policy. And it turned out to be a prescient set of questions. It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have 2 choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be an informed...
The problem that a lot of people have with Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything. okay?
But you know
and
his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview as opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Then I would just say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
So you see, now you heard that. Democrats saying the quiet part out loud, which is that they don't believe they should be held to any standards because the other side is evil. So John Fetterman in that interview was like, yeah, you shouldn't be asking me about fracking. You shouldn't make this an issue because Trump and J.D. Vance are so terrible, right? Cats and dogs, right? This is his response when asked about, hey, why did you change your position on fracking? Well, I don't have to answer that question. I shouldn't have to because Trump and J.D. Vance bad. Okay, so what makes you better than them, right? See, this is where I'm at with the Democrats, right? Because they want to get all the praise and glory as they pretend to be holier than thou, right? That, oh, well, we're better than Trump and those guys. Like, for example, on the issue of democracy. Democrats say that, well, you should vote for us to save democracy. Trump is a threat to democracy. But yet Democrats don't actually have to believe in democracy, right? They don't believe in democracy within their own party. Okay, they question the outcome of any election they lose. They challenge it. They spread conspiracy theories about the election that are unfounded, okay, because they're mad that they lost. So they do everything that they claim the other side does, but yet they want the praise and glory of being better than the other side. But when it comes down to it, they're not better than the people that they are criticizing and saying that, well, you can't criticize us. You can't hold us to a standard because those guys are just so bad. But yet when it comes time for Democrats to prove and to actually be better than the people that they claim they're better than, they don't want to do that, right? They say, no, you can't hold us to any standards, right? No standards whatsoever. It doesn't matter what Kamala Harris believes. Just know that Trump is just terrible. And in my opinion, this is dangerous ideology. It really is. It's extremely dangerous when you're saying that, well, I don't care what somebody believes. I'm just going to vote for this person because I just hate the other guy so much. When the other guy has proven that he's not the person that the left claims that he is, right? Trump is not a dictator. Trump is not a fascist. Trump is not an authoritarian, because if he was, then he could have been one during the pandemic. He just chose not to, right? The time to be an authoritarian, the time to be a dictator was during the pandemic, right? Where he could have justified it, but he chose not to, right? He willingly chose not to. And I guess you could argue that that could be part of the reason why we didn't get the election outcome that we wanted, right? Is because Trump chose not to be a dictator. Had Trump chose to be a dictator during the middle of the pandemic before the election, then maybe, just maybe, he would still be president. I don't know. I'm just saying the irony here is that these individuals are essentially trying to make the argument that, well, it's better to vote for what you don't know than to vote for what you do know. But what we do know about Trump is that the economy was great, that the world didn't end. We didn't have any new wars or anything like that, that the border was more secure. Like, people actually know that, yeah, under Trump, we were better off. And all these things that the liberal media and Democrats fear-mongered about didn't really happen. That's what we know. But we don't know a lot about Kamala Harris. We do know she said a whole bunch of crazy, insane things that people disagree with before she was vice president, before she ran for president. And we don't have any real explanation on what she wants to do in the future. She hasn't explained why she's changed her positions. So there's a whole lot about Kamala Harris we don't know. And that's honestly probably going to be the main reason why she loses, right? If Kamala Harris loses, the main reason is going to be because people didn't know enough about her. That's it. Because people would much rather go with something they know versus something they don't know. And what we do know about Kamala Harris is that she's a radical extremist, and the record that she has as vice president doesn't help her out. She was a failure on the border. She was a failure when it comes to preventing Putin from invading Ukraine. She's been an absolute failure on every assignment that she's been given, right? Every assignment, everything. She's been a failure. She does not have a good track record. So again, that's the crazy part here, is that these people really believe that, well, we're going to be better off if we just keep Kamala Harris covered up, right? We keep her ambiguous, right? If we continue to just make sure she doesn't answer any questions, we don't have to explain anything. Yeah, that's going to help us out, right? It's going to help us win. Again, they really think the American people are dumb. They're literally betting on the American people being stupid and ignorance. They're betting on ignorance. And for the life of me, I don't understand, why aren't Democrats and liberals offended by this? Why are they not offended by the fact that their party thinks they're stupid, right? They think that their voters are too stupid to actually vote. This is why they didn't allow anybody to vote for Kamala Harris, right? They didn't allow anybody to vote for her. They said, no, she's just a candidate and y'all got to get behind her, and that's it. Okay? That's it. Democrats are scared to death of democracy. Absolutely terrified of democracy. Okay? They hate it, can't stand it. But yet, vote for us to save democracy. It really blows my mind that the Democrat Party has as much support as they do in 2024. It really is a damning indictment on democracy, to be honest with you, because in a sane world, the Democrat Party shouldn't be competitive at all, right? They shouldn't be competing. They should be getting blown out in every election. I'm so serious. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.